everybody. Welcome to Beauty and Brains with Dr. Zuri Dale. And this is a podcast where we merge the art, science, wellness, all of the things, and have very raw and candid conversation. Today's topic is one I'm really, really excited about. This is not about entrepreneurship. This is not about science. This is a very, very real topic that a lot of my friends experience, a lot of my colleagues experience, which is just the generational gap and the differences that sometimes occur between Black mothers and their daughters. And so this conversation is all about trying to understand the source of that tension and conflict, really in an effort to just to heal and to ultimately try to have better and more meaningful relationships with our parents. So I want to introduce our guest today. We have Kimmy Jones, who will speak a little bit about herself, and then Shanae Collins-Ballard. Welcome to Beauty and Brains.
Thank you, Zuri. Dr. Dale.
Thank you, that's sweet. So talk a little bit about yourself before we jump into it.
Okay, well, I am Kimmy Jones. I am a child of God. I am a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. As far as what I do for a living, I'm a makeup artist, and I work with the deceased as well. We have several other businesses, but those two in the makeup artistry industry is what I do. But my ultimate job, though, is being a mom. It's 4 of them, 2 different decades of them. Yeah, so that's my most important job.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shanae Collins-Ballard, and I reign from Houston, Texas, and I am also in the educational field with a degree in social work and as well as psychology. And I also am the CEO and owner of Roots Consulting Firm, where I provide behavioral consulting in the educational realm.
Great. And these are 2 ladies who I love and adore. So I'm so happy to have you.
Baby.
We love you.
So let's kind of get into it. I want to talk about some history. And this is like from y'all's perspective. There's definitely generational gaps within this between us and our parents, okay? And I want to talk a little bit about how you think that generational gap influences the dynamics between Black mothers and daughters just in general. Just thinking about the time that our parents grew up in versus the time that we may have grown up in versus the time that you all may be raising your children in. I don't have children, but each of you have daughters. And so how do you think some of those generational gaps influence those dynamics?
Yeah, definitely. I think that overall, it's like we're living in different times, right? We're living in different times from the times where our parents were raised. And then our parents just really didn't talk about things. They didn't share things with us. You know, everything was taboo. And I think now in raising my child, I think it's more important to be open and honest and share those experiences because we're the models for our children. And I don't want my daughter to experience the things that I have experienced. And so I try to parent a different way.
Absolutely. So I always say to go back and look at the lineage of what was happening before with my mom's mom, and then my mom's mom. What I'm starting to understand and realize as I get older is you can't fault someone for what they just don't know.
Yeah.
So at a time where you are a teen mom and raising a child, it's, and it's accepted because it's like, oops, Shashara is pregnant. We don't want her to have an abortion, so we're all going to pitch in and raise this baby. And then you raise these children, and then they're raised in a different time where they accept accountability different, and then they don't have a teenage baby or pregnant as a teenager. And then they're married and established and then have their children and raise their children different. It just, kind of creates that, this is definitely establishing different generations. I look back and I'm like, to see my mom raise 6 of us and start at 16 and then be done at 30. And then I was pregnant at 30. I'm like,
how did you do that?
Yeah, like what was going on? But again, I just look back at what was occurring before we grew up. They just didn't know. It wasn't even that they wasn't talking about it. They didn't They didn't know.
Okay, so as the daughters of Black mothers who were also the daughters of other Black mothers, I think for us as the children, I feel like we probably can agree, like, there was at some point in our adulthood, it may have happened before adulthood, where we knew that something may have happened to our mothers. We may not have known what that something was, but we knew that something possibly had happened, whether it was some trauma or something. And I think that it may have manifested itself in different ways. For some of us, it may have been like how overprotective she was. I had a very overprotective mom. For some of us, it may have been like comments, cover up, don't wear that, don't do that. In other situations, it may have been just the ways that we knew that they weren't fully at peace. I feel like we may not have known exactly what it was, but at some point in our own development, we learned that something happened here, and we don't exactly know what it was. It was just maybe some chronic pain or some underlying thing, and we didn't talk about it, right? We didn't talk about it, but we knew that our moms may have had like walls up, right? So talk a little bit about that, like from either of your experiences.
I was told, so my mom was raised by her grandmother. My grandmother passed away when I was only a year old. And she said that in the house where they lived, you didn't talk about anything, you wrote letters. So imagine reading the letters and understanding how the other person felt, but still never having the conversation and just going on about the day, the next day or the next couple hours, like those letters and whatever happened didn't happen. So when we got older, since she didn't talk, when things would happen in our home, I wasn't talking to her either because it was like, I don't even know how to go to you and say what I need to say. But it was a pivotal point growing up in my 30s, and I was like, listen, nah, we gonna talk. And this is what's gonna be, and we gonna talk it out, and we're not gonna like what each other say. And at the end of it, we prayed. I said, can we pray? And we prayed. But again, I grew up as my mom's friend. She was a little girl raising a little girl and another little girl and a little boy. And so I noticed it as a child. How as a child do I go to her and unmask?
And then at that age, you don't even know how to put it into words. It's like, it's something going on. I don't know what that something is, but it's something.
And how do I do that as a child? Yeah.
What about you?
Well, my experience is a little different. I was actually raised by my dad. So I was raised by my dad, and I had a stepmom that came in. But I had a very good relationship with my mom because I saw her every other weekend. But it was like the fun mom, right? So I saw the good times with my mom. But it wasn't until my young adulthood that I started seeing those things in my mom. And I'm like, wait a minute, something is not right. And that's when we started having our tension. So it wasn't in my formative years. So I think I really, I'm grateful that I didn't have those experiences, negative experiences with my mom in my formative years, because that's really what lays the foundation and that's really what shapes you. And so that's really what I carry on to my daughter and my son. But it was really in my adulthood where that tension started to rise.
That's why I said in my 30s is when I was like, hold up, sis. Hold up, mama.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I was an adult as well.
Do you think that some of like the differences in communication styles kind of lead to some of these tensions? I know for like my experience, like we're a part of a generation where we want to have conversation.
Yep.
It's like, what's wrong with just talking?
Yeah.
And I think that, our parents just come from a different time. And one thing that I am learning, is that to have grace, for our parents, like particularly our moms who grew up with their moms, and I can imagine what that probably was like. And the way that our moms are just a sum of their life experiences, right? And when I think about, who and what I am, at my age versus what I remember my mom to be when she was at my age, it doesn't feel like the same person, right? And so even when I think about like my mom's biology, like how she's just a sum of all of those things that she's experienced, you know, that even contributes to maybe chronic illness or things that she may be experiencing, you know, at this present day that I may not experience, you know, when I get to be the same age. And I can just, it's like, how does holding all that stuff in, what does it do to your body? Like, what does the stress and like the physical tension do, you know, like to your body? But the question is, how do you think like differences in communication styles kind of contribute to some of the tensions? I know for me, like it's tension because we're just not having conversation, right? So if we not talking, it just feels like an elephant is in the room all the time when a conversation is not being had. But what about y'all? What you think?
What about you?
Well, I think about when you said that, I think about like communication styles and different types of communication styles. And you have like the what is it, the authoritarian style and the authoritative, right? And so the authoritarian, it was like, hey, no, you're gonna do what I say do. You're gonna be quiet, right? And so, and I just truly believe that was the way that my parents, like my mom and my dad, were raised. And so they're raising us, or they raised us in the same manner. And I could have very well have done the same. And I think I did. Let me be honest. I think I did with my first child. That was my guinea pig. And so with my son, I did kind of start off like very authoritarian, right? But with my daughter, I was like, no, she's different. I got to do different. And I want to be different so that she has, you know, a better experience than I did. And so it was more of that nurturing with love, you know, the authoritative style. And so
You're a more gentle parent.
I'm a more gentle parent. I'm a little more gentle, you know, a little more understanding. You know?
And it's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
One of my friends laughed because she says that I raised my children different. Well, they're two different decades.
Yeah.
I had babies in my 20s and babies in my 30s. And so with my children, I always say my mama did the best job. So when I was growing up and watching her, it wasn't to say, you didn't do this right and you didn't do this right. It was me saying, if I'm ever given the opportunity or blessed to be a mom, I'm going to do it just a little bit different.
But I think that's the thing. I think that while that makes sense to us, that is actually not received
You know what, though,
that
Jen?
well.
I tell her all the time. And she actually was like really taken back one time because I told someone else. And I think she either heard me or they told her that I said it. I was like, I watched her, and a lot of who I am was because of what I saw. And when I said that, I was pulling from the strengths, not from
The traumas or negative experiences.
I was like, how to take care of a husband, all of that. How to take care of my children, all of that. I pulled that, all of that goodness. And that's how I became the Kimmy that I am. But I handled them totally different. And it's times that I hear, and Marcus will say to me, my husband say, you sound just like your mama. And I will hear the voice. And he's talking about the texture and the crackle. But at times I hear myself saying things that I would hear her say to me. And I say, okay, I could have said that just a little bit different, you know, with the same meaning, just a little bit different. I don't gentle parent. I ride their wave. Each child needs something different. And I give it to them how they need it.
So you kind of spoke on this a little bit, like each child is parented differently because they are going to get a different version of you than the other child got. So I know you have a sibling. You have at least one brother that I know of, Shanae, and you have siblings as well. So do you feel like, and I met your brother, but I know who you all are, and you all are two very strong Black
Not ready for
women.
this one.
Okay? You all are two very strong women. And while I've not seen the dynamics of you with your siblings, but have you all ever felt like more pressure was put on you to be and to do and to, you know, be all of the things like in comparison to your siblings, like from your parents?
At some point, I was the first one.
Oh, you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest of my mama's and my daddy's children.
Okay.
So I was second mama.
Do you think that impacts the way you parent your children, though?
Absolutely. And Marcus.
Like I had to do this, I had to do that, so you can go and do it. But is that fair?
Well, no,
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't have
so,
children.
So I don't do it to my children.
Okay.
I always tell my daughter, especially because she's my oldest, I would ask her, do you feel like watching your siblings? And if she said no, I say, okay. I either stayed at home or I pass them to their daddy.
Yeah.
Because I always told her, these are not your children. These are mine. Well, at my mom's house, I stepped up because my mom had to work.
And you do what your parents tell you to do.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And so I was her helper. It was 5 of them at home under me. So I was combing hair and cooking and cleaning and organizing and sorting clothes and washing them, whatever she needed me to do. The Bible told me to honor her. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, we know in the Black household, there's Jesus, and then there's the Black mama. And we are raised and conditioned to believe that
Mama do no wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your
I don't know.
experiences?
I think for me, I think I put the pressure on myself to push forward and to do more, right? And to excel and to exceed. I put the pressure on myself. I'm the youngest. My brother is the oldest, by just a year. But because of the emotional trauma that we experienced growing up, watching a divorce, and when I say watching a divorce, right, watching that play out, and then watching my mom walk out of the house and leave us with our dad. So we experienced some trauma growing up, and my brother and I experienced it on different levels. And for him, well, I won't speak his. I'm gonna share his story. I share mine. Right. But we experienced it on different levels. And for me, instead of really not being able to really achieve things in life or not being able to be successful, I just decided I was just gonna
do it.
Yeah, I was gonna make good grades and I wanted to please everybody and make sure I made my dad smile. So that was my way of really going through that,
and
through that trauma.
Excuses and allowing your trauma
not
to stop
overcome
you
me
from pushing
yeah
forward.
Yeah,
I
because
didn't.
I read something that said, trauma defines or it explains behavior, but it doesn't necessarily justify it. But it can explain why some things are the way, that they are. So when we think about some of these walls that I feel like we agree that, our parents may have had up, do you feel like in any ways that it caused you to overly want to seek love, approval, or reassurance from your mom? I feel like from my personal experience, I've been in that place of always wanting to overly do, thinking that if I overly did, that it may break the wall of something, the something that I don't even know what the something is. I'm just trying to do all of the things in hopes that it would shatter this glass wall that has been built up for whatever reason. And I feel like it caused me to really try to overly seek approval and reassurance, from my mom. What do y'all think?
Not for me. Again, I always wanted to be the help. And so now that I'm older, baby, I can't do all of that because I'm somebody's wife and all these children's mother myself. But I had to learn, and I'm still learning, to let go of trying to do so much for so many people. And I think that's because, number one, we Capricorns. So when you say please, we want everybody to be happy all the time, and we don't consider ourselves. Wow. We hardly ever put ourselves first. I'm not telling no story. so it's about, are they comfortable? Are they okay? And will she get an attitude if I do this or if I say that? And I was like, you know what, sister girl, no, I'm just not doing that anymore. I've gotten to the point now where I go straight in and I say what I need to say and I say who I need to say it to. And I let it out because the one thing you talked about was ailments, illnesses. I do feel like a lot of us are struggling with internal illnesses because of what we keep in. Baby, I'm going to say what I got to say. I'm going to say it in love and respect. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to ask the Lord to forgive me. And that's just going to be that. But I've never really sought the approval. I feel like I have pushed forward and put my hands in so many things. and persevered in some. And I don't get claps from those that are closest to me. And I say, okay then. Because like what I'm doing, I'm not doing it for you anyway. So if you never say, I'm proud of you, or that look good, or show up to something that I'm a part of, that's fine. But I'm not seeking it. I'm just not gonna do it.
Is it really fine, or did it take you time to get to the point of it being fine?
Nope, didn't take me no time. And I think because being the oldest, she had to give a lot to everybody else. So what was I doing?
Taking care of figuring
Everybody
it out.
else. Yeah. So it's like if I post something and it look good and they don't say, comment on it or say, how did this go today? Or I knew you was a part of this and how did it go? Or great job with it. I don't.
Okay.
But I try to be what could have been missing for me for the 4 that God gave to me. And I don't feel no way about it. Like, my mama had a lot on her plate. So, but there was more time given to the ones that came after me because she was able to. And I'm okay.
And so, do you hold any like ill will or ill feelings or resentment like towards your mom, like at all about any of that?
No, ma'am.
I'm so happy for you. No, I'm
Not even a little
serious.
bit.
What about you?
Because you gotta forgive.
So I don't. Bring me back. Say the question one more time. So I was
Girl, we
trying to
didn't
go
got
somewhere.
off. We didn't
I
got
know
off
because
the
I
whole
wanted. So
topic,
since
girl.
we did get off, so now because what you were saying, I was thinking about my mom and where the tension started with us, and that was in. I may have been in maybe about 27, 28, and my mom had just lost her mom. Okay. So my mom had just lost her mom. And prior to that, she was taking care of my granny. And my granny had cancer. And so she was there all the time, taking care of her, moved in with her, everything. And her life just became a caretaker. What is my life now?
A caretaker.
My God. Hello. So she was a caretaker. And I watched her take care of my granny, put in that time, and I also watched my mom's health decline, mental health decline because of that. And she, the depression, I saw depression and just all of that, right? And so she ended up leaving and went to another city. And I'm like, wait a minute, mama, I need you. I just had this little boy. I've never had a child before. I need my mom, and all I remembered was my mom in my younger years, and that was my friend. I could talk to her, and I lost that, right? But my mom was so emotionally withdrawn because she had not really grieved the process of my grandmother. And so she could not be to me because she couldn't even be to herself, and so that was really difficult. And I think that is where the tension came in for me. I understood, but it was still like, I need my mama.
And I think when you say she couldn't be to you, again, when I say the helper, y'all, I mean like the helper. Like from the time that I could be the helper. So I viewed her as, this is Miss gonna get it done, like with a man, without a man. So I guess I didn't hold her to certain, degrees growing up. Again, the tension didn't start until my 30s. Because I think in her mind, you could still handle me like little Kimmy. And then that's when I said, but hey, so we're gonna have a conversation. And I said it just like that. We're gonna talk.
I actually can. For me, same. I think, but any tension between me and my mom probably, even if things were there, I feel like it did not really come to a head until I became an adult. A fully grown adult with a fully developed brain who could reason and rationalize. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately, though, and I want to get y'all's opinion on this. I think that up until a certain point, the relationships that we have with our moms in particular are that of like mother and daughter. So it's definitely like somewhat of an authoritative type of relationship. But when you get into your 30s, right, or a fully grown adult now, whether you have children in your own family or not, I think sometimes it's difficult for moms to transition from being my mom, mother and daughter, to like mother and daughter, but it's okay for us to kind of be friends a little bit. And it's like maybe the switch, y'all have children. So maybe it's sometimes I feel like the switch doesn't automatically kind of go off because it's like, well, I'm grown and I'm a full adult and I can make some of these decisions, like for myself. And sometimes I feel like it's hard for the relationship to grow and blossom into a different type of relationship.
Shanae said that her and her mom, that was her homegirl. And me and my mama, that's been my partner. Like, I'm gonna put on some clothes and go meet her. That's my homegirl. So being friends ain't never been an issue. It's when I need you to be my mama.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
My goodness.
And I think for me, I definitely think it's like the opposite.
Yeah. And don't.
I've been hyper parented.
Yeah. So don't just
It's crazy to see like the dynamics still play out, with such a polarizing situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's been my homegirl. It's like, again, she was 16 when she had me. So we grew up together. So that's been out. But when it comes to understanding that I'm the daughter,
still.
And you the mama, and I'm gonna treat you like the mama, but don't treat me like I'm not the daughter. That's where we bump the heads.
Yeah. And that's where I had challenges because I needed that guidance while I was raising my son. I needed my mom's guidance. I wanted to be able to call her and say, "Hey, what do I do? I mean, let's talk about this. Can you help me with this?" And I just was not able to. I wasn't able to do that. And on top of that, right after my mom grieved her mom, then mental health that kicked in. Then a stroke came, and so I lost every ability to communicate with my mom. So I have no communication with her at all anymore. So now with her having dementia, I can't pull and glean from my mom at all. You know what I mean? So the roles have reversed.
You said two things.
Yeah.
First, let's talk about like this mental health piece. Like, what role do you think that mental health plays in the relationship between mothers and their daughters?
A huge one.
Oh yeah, and I'll talk about it as it relates to me and my daughter. I have a really good relationship with my daughter. She's so peaceful. She's so you know her. She's so quiet. She's so peaceful. And just her presence changes the atmosphere. So I'm thankful for that. There are times when, it's the menopause and the puberty. They don't go together.
They don't.
Sometimes. So, I have to kind of tell her, hey, watch that right there. I see you. Correct yourself. And that's really all I have to do. Hey, correct yourself, right? So that tension comes in with my daughter and I. But yeah, I forgot where we were going with that. Mental health. But wait a minute. But menopause is mental health.
Yeah.
And that's something that we don't talk about.
Oh no, we've been talking about that.
But we don't. Like as black women, we do not talk
the
about
hormonal changes that come with that. Hello? And the way that it
big time.
Clouds your thinking.
When I was growing up, I knew when mom was having hot flashes, and I knew that there were times when she was, was irritated or irritable, but I didn't really know what it was because they didn't talk about it.
Well, I definitely feel like our parents did not talk about mental health as much as we do. And now these kids, they need mental health days from school. I'm like, what?
Yes.
You I get them. What are you talking about?
Oh, no,
and they ask for them. And so it's like I find myself saying, I didn't get to be at home for no mental health day. Get me one day every month attached to the weekend. They got all this kind of stuff.
The schools don't give them. But when you do it for your child, you just send the note and say, this is what we
But
took this day for.
that's a thing now. It wasn't a thing when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So
we
talk about it more now.
certainly
It's
for
more
my
accepted.
mom, I could imagine that it was not a thing.
Right.
So it just makes me think about all of the dysfunction one would have had to be existing in and still parenting in and still trying to like raise children in without forget a mental health day. The mental health was not even like a topic. Because I feel like if you were if I can, I'm just throwing this out there. Like if a mom called into work and said, "Hey, I'm overwhelmed. I need some time to process," they'd be like, "Girl, she must be crazy." They'll be talking about Sinead by the time she got back. If this was like 1965.
And wouldn't have a job.
And so I kind of think about like those things as well.
So before we get off the mental health piece, again, it's important to go back in the lineage. So when we were little, my mom had a depression, a stage of depression. I remember her going from like a size 8 to a size 2. We literally watched her decline. There was no verbalization, like she didn't speak. She rocked and she cried. She wouldn't eat either. So again, the helper. I was getting everybody up for school and getting us on the bus. My bonus dad, because I hate saying stepdad, even though I'm grown, he had to work. So we had an aunt who would come and sit with my mom. But she wasn't going to do anything. She just sat. And I remember the day that I came home from school and I heard her voice. She was on the phone and she was making the bed. And I came up in that house like, oh my God, like this woman is talking. And she told me that she had told God that if you just get my mind out of this, I'm going to serve you to the day I die. And when I tell you this woman could quote the Bible, she could quote the Bible. She knew what a period was, what a punctuation. She knew what was in red, what Jesus said. She knew the Bible because when she came out, she dove into the word. And that was all she knew after that. So then I get grown and I have these feelings and these thoughts and I'm pregnant. And this was after a loss. I had lost a baby. And I told Marcus, I'm like, I feel like this and my heart is beating fast. I don't know what's going on. And so Mr. Google Man, he looked it up and he said, "You have anxiety." And I'm like, "What? Like, what's that?" I went to the doctor and I told her what was going on. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to send you to a therapist." So I didn't even think of or know that hereditarily you can be affected from depression. So now I have a 19-year-old daughter and she's in therapy. I had no clue, none whatsoever. But experiencing that with her and making it all the way to my mid-30s it's like my mind took me back to that, hearing her voice, and I was like, my mama was depressed. Oh my God. And then the medicine that I was on, Marcus hated it. He threw it away. Marcus is my husband. I keep saying his name. He threw it away because he said that it put me in a state of that I didn't care about anything. Oh, wow. He was like, "You like cheese. If you say you want cheese on your burger," I'm like, "I don't care." Yeah, he was like, "Nah, you can't take that no more." But even just
I know this girl like cheese. How many? She knows she likes cheese.
I love me some cheese.
Make some decisions.
But going through the course of the mental health and the medication and not taking it anymore, I'm weaned from medication. I do still deal with anxieties. But again, tracing that lineage. So now I wonder if my grandmother
and did that impact the way that she parented your mom?
It absolutely did. Because at a time when my parents were being raised, the drug, what's it called, epidemic, was on a rise. And so there was a lot of that within the older people in my family. We don't have any elders in my family. They're gone, all of them. Yeah, but maybe 2. And they're also dealing with illnesses that could be because of what they put into their body at that time. So the mental health piece, we are constantly talking in my house. We talk about narcissism. We talk about gaslighting. We talk about accountability.
Words that we would not have been talking about back in, if I was to say that word today, that would
not at all.
That would not.
And they know exactly what it is.
That would not. So I have another question. So, okay, we have Black mothers. You all are mothers to Black daughters, but we're also first Black women.
Okay.
So my question is, it's not really a question, I want to talk about this. How do you think the stereotypes of Black women in general impact the interaction between like mothers and daughters, or some of the tensions that exist between mothers and daughters? Like, I can kind of share some of like one of my experiences. So I have only had one African American boss figure in the workplace. And that has been a great boss, great dynamic. But I have had colleagues who have had African American female bosses share very differing circumstances. And so, like, when I would ask them, well, like, describe to me what's going on. Or she always got an attitude. Or she always got this. And I'm like, well, how you know she got an attitude? Is that just something that we're saying or thinking because it's a Black woman that we're talking about? So then it makes me think about like my mom. If I say something, I'm like, well, why you got an attitude? And I'm like, but would I even think this was an attitude if it was somebody else? I'm constantly like playing like these things, like in my mind. And so I just wonder if some of the stereotypes about Black women in general influence the ways that we may view our parents. What y'all think about that? Because I'm a Black woman in a professional setting.
Okay.
I know you do makeup, you work professionally for some of the funeral homes, and I know where you work.
Yeah, you do. My Lord.
And I know where you are. And I feel like we all have experienced like some stereotypes like associated with like being like a Black woman. Like, have you ever thought that maybe like some of those things that have been just like ingrained in our mind like influence the things that we think about our
Like
own
the
mind?
comments, like she thinks she's better.
Or she's angry.
Or she's
That's the one.
Yeah.
that one. Like, why you so mad?
That's the one.
Like
no.
maybe she's not even mad. I don't know.
Why are you mistaking my passion for being angry and mad?
But see, that's what we say. But then that's also something like that my mom says to me. And it makes me say, well, maybe she right. Maybe she not angry, because people are saying that to me all the time. Like, why you so mad? Why you so this?
Yeah.
It's just, I'm just thinking about like a shift in like perspective and like how do some of those stereotypes influence the way that we kind of interact with our parents, or maybe the way that our daughters may interact with us.
That's what I was about to say. So like, okay, so growing up, that was disrespectful.
Stop being disrespectful. Stop you smacking your lips at.
Even a deep breath.
Yeah, because why you breathing hard? Why are you breathing hard? And
Right.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
What do you mean yes?
So I don't care about ma'am on the end. I would rather them do that for other people because that makes them feel superior. Just yes is good enough for me. Just don't yell at me. Taking a deep breath. I remember the day that I stopped saying, stop blowing your breath, because it hit me in that moment like, girl, you hated that.
Yeah.
And a deep breath for me now, it controls pain. It controls my anxiety. And when I can't figure something out, I tell them from Boss Baby, it says to smell the roses and you blow out the candles. So I encourage it. Even the elementary school, my children come home and say, you upset? You're yelling, Mom.
Breathe.
Take a deep breath. So now those things are not things that I practice, because it's like, I remember what I felt like dealing with those things. We had, our baby he's 17 now. He used to go in the refrigerator and just get what he wanted. And one day I said, what are you doing? And he said,
you didn't ask me for that
was a no-no.
He said, I'm getting me some
no-no.
snacks. And I was like, in my mind, I want to say, who are you talking to? But Marcus say,
he answered
you asked him a question. And so I had to unlearn so much. And so now with this 19-year-old college student, before she left home, we had a yelling match. She was sweeping, and I don't remember what caused it to get there. I think it was something that was said to her through text from me in a group chat with her dad and her brother and I. And it pissed the little girl off, pissed her off. And so she wears her headphones because, again, her anxiety, she shuts off the outside. She doesn't care about mingling and friends. She has this social battery that gets low, and she has to retreat. And so pulling her from her room already stirred her mind, right? And so I said something to her, and she gave me this look. And it was that look like shut up talking to me. And so I took a moment and I went into
Good job.
I went into preaching. And I was like, look, I said, the outside world don't care nothing about that attitude. I turned into that mama.
Right.
And I said, y'all are not even being raised to go outside and get a job and sustain a life at your age. At 19, I have a college student. At 19, I was a wife. Okay? So I have to make her understand our dynamics, we're growing up totally different, but one thing is always gonna remain the same. Don't nobody outside of this house care nothing about that attitude that you got going on. So we're gonna work on that and we're gonna fix that now. And she yelled out and said, because I told my therapist I don't do nothing right in this house. And I said, girl, don't gaslight me.
Don't be talking about me, your
Don't-
therapist.
Right.
Because
Another one.
Yeah,
Don't talk about
and I
business.
never, and I
That's
never
disrespectful.
never say
Don't
that
even
you,
tell the therapist.
Don't
No.
even talk about me.
I don't care who you paying.
But
Don't
get
even
you,
tell
get you a
her.
therapist so you can talk about me to the
Exactly.
therapist.
I paid for the therapist. It wouldn't be
Don't
a
tell
you
her
to
about
go
me.
to the therapist without me. You
But
wouldn't be going to
I want you to have that freedom to say it, but don't use that on me. But I told her, I said, it's not that you don't do nothing right. We in a generation now, y'all, where I used to listen. Did you listen, Zuri?
I think I did.
Did you listen?
Yeah,
I think I
You
did.
don't want to listen.
Yeah, I did.
And I'm like,
We had to.
We had to.
We had to listen.
We did. Yeah.
She didn't listen.
My sister tried to say I didn't listen. I was very obedient. She talking about a little talking in class, y'all. That was nothing.
But guess what,
But
though?
that a little talking in class, a
Now
little
look
S
at you
and
now.
a
Now
little
look-
N, a
now
little
look
N
at
in
you.
conduct, a
Yeah,
little
it was
P.
okay.
Yeah.
A
But look
little
at you
U.
now.
little P. Wait a minute.
Sure,
Not a
I
P
was
and a U.
changing them U's and P's to E's. She my mom ain't never, mama, I had all E's. She ain't never see that I was changing.
But look at you now, honey. But yeah, but the stereotypes of always having an attitude, that's all I'm trying to prevent. You're not at a HBCU. You're somewhere where you're going to have to be very conscious and mindful of who you are because of this. Girl, calm that down. Like,
But it shouldn't even be accepted at the HBCU
it
either.
shouldn't.
You know.
It shouldn't. But you know
Standards
what
everywhere.
but you know what I'm saying about
I
her
hear you, though.
Uh-huh.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So, what are some, and y'all touched on this a little bit, like, so I don't have children, so like, educate me. What are some strategies that y'all have found to be like useful in trying to manage conflict, like with your daughters? Because I feel like the strategies of the past are completely different than the now.
I don't think there were any strategies
Okay,
then.
so
No,
I don't
feed
think
them.
so.
Feed them and clean them.
Yeah.
And send them to school.
Yeah, and go to your room. I don't know. I don't think
but
there were
that's
any
just so
strategies.
interesting because it's like, Shanae, I know you know this. Very like early on in development, a child's needs extend. We look at the hierarchy of needs. Basic needs are actually at the bottom. Once you reach like a certain age, basic needs are no longer like what a child needs in order to grow, develop, and thrive. And that's such a hard one because our parents come from a generation where what? I fed you, I did this, and I did that, so everything should be perfect.
Yeah, what you have an attitude for? You don't pay
Why
no
you mad?
bills.
What do you mean trauma?
Right.
Like what? You know, I did all the things, and I think it's valid for their experiences. But as a person who has been privileged, I call it a privilege, to just have some just advanced education that I know that some of our parents just were not able to access. I know that basic needs are so low in terms of like what a child needs to grow and develop and thrive. So it's like you said, like there was nothing. There were no strategies. It was like, I'm raising you. That's the strategy.
How was your
But I
wave?
think-
Not
but I
only with
think
your baby,
in
your girl.
understanding that hierarchy, right? But the basic needs were the foundation, right? So it was like if you took care of those basic needs and if you provided those basic needs, then you were able to move up to a different level, right? So by the time you get up to the peak, you're supposed to already be fulfilled with those basic needs. I think that's what the expectation of it is, right? But I think for me, what was the question, y'all? We vibing.
Yeah, because
And I'm trying to bring it back.
The strategies. Yeah, because I was going to ask you about
Hello.
your son as well,
Strategies.
not just
Okay.
with your daughter.
So for strategies for me, it really has been to listen.
Yep.
And that's not easy. That is the hardest thing for me because we didn't really have a voice growing up. And so, in raising my son, I did not really listen a lot. And he'll tell you now, him at 19, he'll tell you like, Mom, why are you talking so loud? Or will you just listen? Will you give me a chance to talk? And so I learned a lot in raising him, which is the reason why I feel like I'm so much of a better parent in raising my daughter. And so, sorry, Amir. But he's still a wonderful child.
He is.
He really is. So thank God for that. But listening, being open and honest,
Yes, ma'am.
has been huge for me. Even when, and I talked about like the menopause and the puberty don't mix, so when I'm going through it and she's going through it in the house, I'm like, hey, let's sit down, let's come to the table and let's talk about this, because right now you're smelling yourself and I'm smelling myself too. So we got to figure this thing out, right? And so, and I just tell her, hey, this is what it is. And so really breaking things down so that she understands, and it's not it's not taboo in the house. So really being open and honest, listening, communication is huge.
Very.
It's huge. I think those are really good strategies to resolving the conflict or avoiding the conflict.
All of those. Again, I have 2 decades of children. Every last one of those strategies. I remember being in church and we had a pastor there, and he told every parent that had a child in the congregation to get to your children. He says, and at the count of 3, I want you to release. I want you to tell your child something about you that they did not know. And I had to do that. I won't share what that is, but I told her that. And when we got home, there were a million questions. And at that time, I think she was about 10. So I tell them all the time in the house, transparency. If we're not open and communicating with each other, how can we save one another? More so, how can we save y'all? Like, it's bigger than knowing your location on your phone.
Yeah.
It's like I need to know that we're locked in, because it's so much going on outside of the doors of our home that I just need you to connect with me. I am a very touchy mommy because my mama didn't hug us enough. So we try to hug enough now, but I am a hug on them. I'm going to kiss on them. I'm telling them, I'm affirming them all the time. I mean, for Valentine's Day, I did for 14 days affirmations on hearts. And I went in my daughter's room way after Valentine's Day, and her hearts was still posted along her mirror. So I tried to be everything that I felt just could have been given to me just a little bit more. But then transparency is one. If I'm messing up, I say, I know I messed up. I know I'm not right. I shouldn't have yelled at you.
Apologize.
I shouldn't have used that bad word, but I still meant what I said, though. You know what I'm saying?
Shouldn't have said it like that.
Yeah, I just shouldn't have said it that way. So I just try to be
But why did our parents not do that?
right.
They did not believe in apologizing and owning
For
up to stuff.
nothing.
That's why the tension was always there and the conflict was always there, because they never really owned up to
Because that
anything.
title means nothing. The respect is both ways. And when I say that, people are like, what do you mean? Like, children, the Bible does tell us, yeah, we have to honor them. But when we become able to sustain life and be on our own, that respect becomes an earned thing.
Right.
You don't feed me. You don't pay these bills, girl. You know, so that's the thing. Even with
Right.
them,
And if
I
it's not
respect.
like reciprocated as a child, what does that look like for us as adults? So I'm like, well, in my 30s, am I still supposed to just sit here and just listen to everything and just say, yes, ma'am?
No, ma'am.
Like, at what point do I get to counter with something else? But you touched on something really, really important. That was about transparency. And that's like a point that I want to hit on before we kind of conclude the episode. Because one thing I realized, and I told this to my mom like a couple of years ago, and I was like, I really don't know that much about you. I know you as my mom, but I don't really know you like as a sister. I don't know you as like a daughter. Like, I don't hear those stories. I don't hear, and I feel like what sometimes our parents don't understand is that it's hard to understand or empathize with what you don't know.
It is.
All we're doing at this point is leaving it up to the imagination.
for sure.
That I'm mature enough to know that something probably happened, and I want to still empathize with what I don't know. But it's hard when you are not telling me anything about you. All I know is you, like, as my mom. I don't know you in any other context. And that's something that's hard for me. Also because I don't have any children, so I don't have the vantage point of all of the things that moms, kind of go through. It's just like I'm looking at you as my mom, but I've not felt or experienced, some of those emotions. So I just kind of know you as like my mom. I don't know anything else about you. So it becomes hard to empathize, in those situations. So what you're saying about being transparent and like having the open and honest communication, like the only hope is that your children like receive that and that they can show you more grace for the mistakes that you make and they can readily accept the apologies, right? Because you're talking about the things and the apologies are given versus like in my situation, I just don't know a lot about my mom and what it was like for her as a daughter or like for her, as a sister. So that's something that I'm trying to
to explore now.
Do you share? Do you share with your baby?
Do I share my experiences growing up? Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that makes y'all's relationship stronger?
I think it does. I think it does. Like there's not a whole lot I hide.
Right.
I do. And I think more so because I'm a single parent. And my kids they see everything all the time. So it's kind of like, I don't want you to be confused about what's going on. I need you to know.
Fill you in.
And it's okay to not be okay. Because I think when we share our feelings and our emotions, then as they grow up, they're able to express their feelings and their emotions. But if we hide that and we keep that inside and they never see, we put on this facade for them all the time, that's how they're going to grow up.
This one-dimensional parent.
Yeah.
And I think what our parents, like everything is about, okay, I've birthed you, so I'm feeding you, I'm clothing you, I'm sending you to school. Now I got to make sure you stay alive. So everything now is about making sure that I protect my investment, And I feel like it's a lot of discipline in the Black household, but what, like the root word of discipline is disciple, right? And disciple means to teach.
Hello? Yes, it
and
is.
I feel like that's the piece that's kind of missing, at least it was for me. I feel like it was not a lot of modeling of some of the things that I've had to learn. Like my mom was a great parent, but in terms of like, what we're like the accountability or the apologizing or just saying, yeah, I did that. Okay, I'm human. Next, because a lot of stuff is, as a woman, I understand mistakes. This is the perfect time to do it because I'm out here just making mistakes so this is actually the perfect time.
Making mistakes, cleaning them up,
Right.
apologizing, and getting better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the perfect time to come and say, girl, yeah, I've been there, done that, made that mistake. Because I'm be like, girl, you did, I did that too. But it's this wall where it's like, sometimes I feel like they don't ever want the relationship to evolve into a different type of relationship. Like I gotta keep the mother-daughter there because I don't need you thinking that I'm your little friend.
Maybe it's just that they're not willing to be vulnerable. Maybe it's I don't know how to be vulnerable with my child. It's different.
Again, my mom was my homie, so I know a lot. And a lot of what she told me is what kept me from making some of the same mistakes. But again, I think it's coming back to, you're still my daughter, but you're my grown daughter.
Yeah, you're still my daughter.
You're still my daughter.
It's that title.
Yeah.
It's the title.
It's the title.
That's the title.
It's the title. And it's one of those, it's kind of like how we at work. It's like, respect the position. Yeah. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
All that other stuff is fine, but respect.
And it's like, baby, at this age, that's just a title, pumpkin. You still working for...
Just kind of thinking about it, like, I remember saying a couple times, okay, now I'm still your mama.
I'm still your mama.
Don't forget I'm still your mama.
Yeah, it don't matter what I did, respect. And I do to some degree agree with that. I do to some degree agree with that. Right.
It has to be there. And again, that's that piece about, I'm going to honor you. So I'm consciously not going to step out of line with you. I'm not going to speak to you a certain way. It's some boundaries. Even when I'm heated, there's a certain way that I'm going to handle you that I would never handle anybody else. She told me one time, y'all, she said, because I ain't one of your friends. I said, I know you're not. Because if you was,
this would go down a little
bit different. Yes, I said, I know you're not. Now I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Do
then
you know? You lucky you not.
You not. And with
You know
my,
what?
and
You
with my
lucky you not
children,
my little friend.
with my children, I just be like, who you talking to? Yeah, who you talking to? Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I mean, like, this was really like an amazing conversation to have with y'all. And I think ultimately, like, what I hope for, like, for us, like, as parents or future parents, and even like for our parents or other women who may be watching that live in that generation, is that we just live in a time where stories can be shared, right?
Yeah.
Where women don't have to live in silent shame,
right.
where they can have conversations, that open dialogue can occur between mothers and daughters, in an effort not to build or continue to perpetuate sources of conflict and tension, so that we all can just move towards healing.
Healthy
healing.
Healthy healing.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
that's good.
Thank you all. This is the episode Understanding Conflicts and Tensions with Dr. Zuri Dale. I had some amazing guests on today.
Thank you.
Some amazing guests on today. And so I hope you all enjoyed this episode.